Good morning, Joey. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's big news overnight, so getting up early today.
I bet you're going to be a busy man today. And so I'm not going to waste too much of your time. I want to get right into today's show. Of course, welcome back to the American Warrior Show. My name is Rich Brown. I'm a retired Marine Corps officer, former police officer, special operations officer, and today I'm very excited to be joined by a brother Marine, Mr. Joey Jones, Fox News contributor. You guys probably know Joey extremely well. May not know he's a retired Marine staff sergeant. Joey has a new book coming out on June the 17th titled Behind the Badge, which details the bond within the first responder community as they deal with unimaginable situations, trauma, and heroism daily. Joy joined Fox News Media as a contributor in 2019, and in this capacity, he provides military analysis across all Fox News media platforms. Before his role at Fox News, Jones endured 2 combat deployments and 8 years of active service in the United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi. While deployed to Afghanistan, he suffered a life changing injury that resulted in the loss of both of his legs above the knee. Since his recovery, he has dedicated himself to working with veterans' issues through veteran service organizations. Notably, Jones went on to create a fellowship on Capitol Hill with House Committee on Veterans Affairs, where his contributions resulted in direct policy changes within the Veterans Administration Department of Defense. I really appreciate that as a disabled vet myself. In 2022, Jones authored the New York Times best-selling book, Unbroken Bonds of Battle, a modern book on heroism, patriotism, and friendship, which was also published by Fox News Books. The book spent 8 weeks at the New York Times bestseller list and has sold nearly 116,000 copies. My goodness, you are a busy man, sir.
Well, listen, that bio you just read, I probably know about where you got it, and I just you make yourself you kind of lay out everything you've got experience in when you have a bio publicly, in case somebody wants to reach out to you for a reason. So definitely not self-aggrandizing or trying to brag or anything like that. It's just been a fun life after injury, trying to do good things.
No, I hear you, brother, and you have done a lot of good things, and we do have a lot in common. I believe we're both from Southern Appalachians, both former Marines, and my grandfather may or may not have run a little moonshine back in his day. So
Yeah,
you
that's
got
my
that.
family's that's my youngest uncle, who didn't drink till he was in his 40s, is opening up his bar and restaurant at his distillery this month, and our family lineage or story heritage has come full circle from outlaw moonshine to dirt track racing to doing moonshine legally. So eventually we all get tamed, I guess.
Yeah, same here. My great great grandfather, he was a whiskey maker for E.H. Taylor. So every now and then I sip that bourbon and think about old granddad's recipe. But this is the book, guys.
Yeah.
Behind the Badge. It's a fantastic read. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you if you've served in any capacity, you've sworn an oath to this nation, I think you're going to find a lot of commonality with the people that Joey discusses in this amazing book. I've got links in today's show notes if you want to go ahead and pre-order a copy. It looks like it's already sitting at #1 spot already in pre-orders. Joey, congratulations.
Thank you. I can't deny the fact that Fox News Channel is an amazing and tremendous platform to get the word out about a book. So pre-sales, I'm proud of, but that's because we have a tremendous marketing opportunity. I think once people get the book and start reading it and the organic word of mouth, that's when you see a bump that you're really proud of. And that's what happened with Unbroken Bonds of Battle. And this book is written very, very similarly. And I think maybe even more interestingly, we've done a good job of telling our warfighter stories. We've got movies and books and just phenomenal individuals who have much more of a war story than I ever will to tell. And the country has spent 20 years saying, starting with we appreciate what you're doing, to, oh, wow, there's a psychological effect, to we should do more, to accepting PTSD, to, kind of 20 years of a conversation to understand the psychological effect of going to war for our military. And you look at our first responders and you think, okay, well, when you really get into it, the psychological effect that they go through is very different, but probably just as or more severe. And I can say that as someone who's seen the worst war has to offer. And there's no conversation whatsoever about them. As a matter of fact, the conversation has been whether or not we should support them or hate them. I mean, that's been the conversation since 2020 at least. And so, I mean, obviously that's oriented specifically towards law enforcement, but you know, this book starts off with two firemen that come from two different places. One's my brother-in-law, the other one I've known since I was 3 years old. They just happened to become best friends in their career, but I knew each of them independently in my own life. But they come from two different places. My brother-in-law comes from a dad who's a millionaire and sent him to business school at the University of Georgia, and the other guy comes from, hey, this is the closest thing to college you're going to get, going to the fire academy. And they both are equally as dedicated to the job, and they both tell stories of horrible things happening that they had to endure and try to forget about, and stories of honorable, triumphant things happening. And the takeaway for those two specifically, but all nine in the book and the hundreds of thousands of first responders, millions in this country, is our worst day in our lives, which for me in the book, in the opening chapter, my dad dying at my house, is just another day on the job for them. I mean, firemen showed up that night and kept his body alive for 2 more days. And so if you want to respect, the job of a first responder, it's not that that state trooper wants to give you a ticket. It's that he's seen what it looks like when you swerve, hit another car, and he's got to scrape you up off the street.
Mhm.
It's not that that fireman wants to be treated like a hero. It's that you better respect that, because we walk out of our front door with this sense of entitlement. If something goes wrong, somebody will come save us. We take risks. We're lackadaisical. We text and drive. We leave the stove on. We literally have, and I say we collectively as a
Mhm.
society,
Sure.
have very little fear of the consequence of our actions as far as accidents go, not to mention the evil acts of people out there. And the reason why we have that sense of entitlement, the reason why we have that assuredness that somebody will be there, is because these are the people that are.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the ones that really touched me was in the book. It was Kathleen, who had no intention of joining the police department where her brother was down in, I think, in
Caitlin.
Hillsborough County. But her brother sacrifices himself to stop a drunk driver. I'm getting chills just
Yeah.
talking about it because it
Yeah.
was so poignant. And I love in the book how you will, you know, they'll be in the middle of a story and you'll kind of break in with a little bit of commentary just to add a little bit of context, perhaps to bridge the gap between what they're doing and maybe a lesson for the civilian community. And well done on that, Joey. I would be remiss if I didn't, though, while I got you on here, the world's an unsafe place. I mean, that's what the impetus of the American Warrior show for the last 11 years has been, to help Americans prepare for the threats that we face. And really, you only got to turn on Fox News to understand what's going on, with whether it's the riots, Ukraine, and now we have this GWAT potential 2.0 breaking out last night. Do you have any thoughts on that from what you've seen?
Yeah, I have good faith in the leaders of our country now. I obviously know Pete Hegseth very well, spent years working beside him, and I've seen President Trump in his first term. I don't think we have an administration that's hungry to get into war for Israel or anyone else. I think we have an administration, a Secretary of Defense, who's literally fought the long wars that we look back and ask hard questions. Was it worth it? Should we have done it? What did we get out of it? With that being said, that you can't deny what Iran has done for decades now to kill Americans, disrupt the Middle East. And I think that if our administration is going into this eyes wide open, I feel very confident that we'll come out on the good side of it. I fear for the lives of U.S. troops abroad, especially within reach of Iran, because when you back a snake into a corner, it strikes. And so it
Mhm.
may not be the wise decision for Iran, but they may strike at U.S. military bases. I don't expect that, but I obviously don't believe there's no way it could happen or anything like that. I don't believe we're protected against it as much as I want us to be.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that President Trump's done a diligent job of ensuring other superpowers don't get involved in this, and I think as it sits today, that's the case. But we come into a place right now where we don't have a great relationship with anybody. I
Right.
mean, when it comes to the countries in Europe, China, Russia, um, maybe we have a stronger relationship with Israel than we've ever had. Maybe we have a stronger relationship, at least on paper and on the camera, with other Middle Eastern Arab countries than we've had in a while. But I don't know that we have a world consensus by any means. And so this is every day, every time they take the pulpit every military action will dictate where the pendulum swings, and we have to ask hard questions and expect perfection from our leaders.
Yeah. Circling back to the book, in your time in the Marine Corps, I heard you mention in a previous interview that the Marine who was killed with you on the same day and in the same blast that took your legs was a Marine from my hometown, Knoxville, Tennessee, and my old unit, Delta Company, 4th CEB. Can you tell us perhaps a little bit about that day and what perhaps led you, Joey, down that path to actually writing the book I'm holding in my hand right here?
Yeah, so the first book, it's kind of ironic how much these books overlap. So you're talking about Daniel Greer, which was a Marine combat engineer, and his wife, his widow, was the last chapter of Unbroken Bonds of Battle, and that book inspired this book. But the way these overlap is Daniel was a full-time fireman, and I'm gonna mess up, and it's not Asheville, Tennessee, but it's something that starts
Ashland, I think.
Ashland,
Yeah.
Tennessee, and so
Mm,
his unit was out of Knoxville.
mhm.
And the thing is, he was a full-time fireman, and Daniel thought, I'm not doing enough to serve. Can you imagine that? I mean, to be a full-time fireman, in his 20, mid-20s, I think, at the time, and just think, I'm not quite doing enough to serve. He just got married, had a 1-year-old son. So he joins the Marine Corps Reserves, and in the reserves, you can't be infantry. So he finds the closest thing to a combat MOS, combat engineer, and then volunteers for a deployment, and then volunteers for an operation, and ends up getting killed on it. And that's the type of individual that serves in our fire halls, in our police precincts, and on our SWAT teams, and on border patrol, and as you read the book, learn as game wardens. And so
Mm.
these heroes at home, these people that join to serve, certainly they don't get the same respect our military does. And maybe it is different enough that it shouldn't be the same, but there should be the same level. There should be the same impetus, because these are people that endure it every single day. I mean, I spent a collective, I don't know, maybe 14 months in war, something like that, maybe 15. I can't remember how long I was in Iraq. I think 8 or 10 months. So but I got to come home, and nothing about my hometown looks like my battlefield.
Right.
And for these people, the battlefield is their hometown. They drive through an intersection to take their kids to school that they scraped a kid up off the pavement 2 years ago. You think that doesn't have an effect on them? You take your family to dinner and you drive past an apartment building that you saw go up in flames, and you watched families just weep from the devastation of losing everything. Those scars don't go away. And it's really remarkable that these people, by the hundreds of thousands at a time, make that conscious decision that, hey, dealing with that is worth it because the mission's worth it. These people are worth it.
Well, the story of was it Daniel that was killed with the day you were
Yeah.
in?
So yeah, Daniel Greer was yeah, he was killed the day I was injured.
He reminded me of my mother's brother, my uncle, who was killed in Vietnam, 18-year-old Marine, and all he wanted to be was a fireman when he got out of the Marine Corps. And of course, he never got that opportunity. And there was several instances that I kind of thought of a young Danny hanging out at the fire hall, dreaming for the day he gets to be a fireman. And he thought, being a Marine was going to help his chances of getting hired one day. And that's the kind of person that is highlighted in this book. And if you don't know one of these heroes, if you're not lucky enough to brush up against them on a daily basis and break bread with them, then reading the stories that Joey has put in here is going to take you as close probably as you can get to these. Is there any story in here, Joy, that kind of sticks out to you as a real prime example? And I know they're all phenomenal, but is there anything in here that kind of sticks out as this is what I'm talking about?
It's hard. I can tell you that all 9 of these people are people that I sit around a campfire on a hunting trip, or every Christmas with my brother-in-law, or I've known since I was 3 years old, or I met at an event and had a chance to have dinner with and talk to. And each one of them just told me their story in a very, very casual way, and I couldn't help but think, man, the rest of the world needs to know this. I think I can't pull just one story out, but since I've talked about others, I'll talk about Justin Heflin. Justin Heflin was a Marine Corps EOD tech with me. His unit replaced my unit in 2010. He did a combat deployment, or maybe a couple. And his dad had been a Marine and become a cop. And Justin wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps in that way. So that's what Justin did. He got out of the Marine Corps and found his way to be an Indiana State Patrolman. And Justin's story it's a story of victory in the sense that he's doing very well. His son's in an elite military school. His daughter's awesome. His family is just fantastic. They're very tight knit. He's doing it right. He's a heck of a state trooper. But his dad ended up passing away in a very tragic way, and we tell that story in the book. His dad kind of fell from grace, not from anything nefarious. He basically, in the early 2000s, he was working night shift with another job because a beat cop salary couldn't pay the bills, and he got hooked on over the counter amphetamines. I can't remember what that's called anymore, but they used to call them little yellow jackets, and they were,
Hmm.
you could get them at convenience stores, then drug stores, and they outlawed them. And they just had a limit on how many you could buy at a time, and if you could be on them while you were on duty, and you end up getting fired over it. And his dad kind of spiraled downhill from that, the shame and the feeling of disappointment, and and so he really kind of went into depression and didn't do well after that. And to know that Justin saw that, saw his dad go through that, and still found the aspiration to go be a cop himself, to go serve his community, I think it just speaks volumes for the type of person, because he got to see the best and worst of it. Hey, this is
Hmm.
how it could turn out if you don't play your cards right. And Justin's kind of honoring his dad by doing it right and making the hard decisions, and showing that there is some redemption even for his dad in this book. For those of us that make mistakes, it's a full circle chapter because he doesn't sugarcoat anything, and I
Hmm.
think all of us can put ourselves or someone we love into his position.
No, I love it. I tell you, I mentioned Kathleen's story, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tommy's story as well as being on
Yeah.
an elite special operations team. My brother and I are both Marines. We were both on the same special operations team together. Jeff left the Marine Corps, went into the Coast Guard, retired from that. So like we're both retired here in East Tennessee. And then Jeff goes, I think I'm gonna be a probation officer. I'm like, what are you talking about? But the calling to serve was there. He's like, well, if not me, who kind of attitude. And
Mhm.
so at 50, whatever years old, Jeff just graduated the academy as the honor graduate. So I think that I think these kind of things tend to run in families. That's at least kind of one of the things that I took away from the book, and it's certainly been the case with me. We're all Marines and cops in my family as well, and but again, because it runs in families, Joey, I don't think enough Americans get exposure to these brave men and women, and which is why I really recommend your book, Behind the Badge: Answering the Call to Serve on America's Home Front. Joey, any plans for another book? What's coming next for you?
Yeah, it's so funny. This book, the idea of this book came at about this point in releasing Unbroken Bonds of Battle. By the time I'd finished the book, edited the book, working with a team to do so. And there's a different there's a different process once you write a book and edit it when you go into promoting it and telling people about it. You really start to consume and process and regurgitate what you've learned when you start telling people about it. Like, for example, I don't use the term "our worst days is another day on the job" for them in the book, because I hadn't made it there yet in writing the book. And then in reading it several times and thinking about it, it comes to be. So in doing that with Unbroken Bonds of Battle, I kind of had the epiphany that, hey, there's a similar book here with first responders that are in this same friend group. There are people in Unbroken Bonds of Battle that are in the same hunting group that does multiple hunts a year with guys in this Behind the Badge. I mean, it's a group of people that are close to me, and so there are a couple of things I'd like to write about. I don't have that epiphany at the moment. You could rewrite both of these books with 10, 12 more people and have just an amazing book. But I always have something to say. So I got a couple of things that we'll get through telling people about this book and getting people to read it, and then we'll see what's next.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, Joy, anything that you can think of that's going to help keep or maybe our listeners a little bit safer in the coming future?
Yeah, I say that there was the whole Drop the D campaign on PTSD, and
Hmm.
I think that's a young, kind of not immature, but that's a perspective. It's not about whether or not the D's there or not. It's just understanding there's a psychological price you pay
Hmm.
to see behind the curtain. Think of Wizard of Oz peeking behind the curtain. Now when you know the wizard isn't there, the world gets a scarier place because there isn't this magical help. When you go to war and come back home, you've seen behind the curtain. You see the dangers in daily life that you didn't see before. And for some, that becomes a burden. For me, it became a gift because then I got to see the world for what it is. And
Hmm.
rather than fear those dangers, prepare for them. And I think if you read this book, what you take away isn't that every time you get in your car, you're going to die, or that every time you turn on something hot, your house is going to burn down. But it's just to have that appreciation for all the work people do to keep those things from happening, to keep the car wrecks from happening, to keep the house from burning down, to keep you from getting lost in the woods. And then all the things people do when those things do go wrong to save your life and save your property and make it to mitigate the damage as much as possible. And if you walk around life with a little bit more respect for that, maybe you make better decisions, appreciate them more, maybe you make yourself less at risk, but still live your life fully.
No, that's a great point. And when I retired from the Marines, I was the regional manager for disaster preparedness and government operations for the state of Tennessee for the American Red Cross, and helping prepare Americans and working with our volunteers. There's a story for you, Joey. I mean, you talking about a group of Americans that don't get enough love and affection, and that is our American Red Cross disaster volunteers, because
Sure.
things they see and the things they do at their own expense is absolutely phenomenal. But everybody out there on the front lines today and the riots across America, man, um, hats off to you. It's an ugly job. I've done a little bit of riot stuff as a police officer, and I didn't enjoy people in my face yelling. But that's
Yeah,
what they're willing to put up with for us, just to give them their right to, as an American, to exercise their freedom of speech. But what they don't have is the right to burn cities to the ground. So I'm
that's
going to
right.
be praying for Pete Hegseth and our president and his administration in the coming days and weeks as they deal with this nightmare out there.
Yeah, we're battling evil on all fronts, but that's what good does, and I think we're a good and righteous country, full of mistakes like anything, because we're not perfect, but I think we have the right goals in the right people.
Well, Joy, thank you for being on the show today, man. I greatly appreciated spending some time with you, and maybe we'll do a round two someday.
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you for your service.
Well, God bless, brother. And out there in Warrior Nation, stay safe because the fight is coming, folks. You ready?